All right, let's jump right into this. For what feels like forever, if you wanted to know where the market was going, you looked at one place, and one place only, the Federal Reserve. But that's all changing. The whole game is shifting, and a totally new story is taking over Wall Street's attention.
So, what is it? What's this new obsession that has every trader and investor completely glued to their screens? It's the question that really redefines all the risks and opportunities for the year ahead.
And there it is. The answer's right there. We've gone from hanging on every single word about interest rates to suddenly tracking global conflicts and these super complex trade negotiations. It's a complete 180, from domestic money policy to the wild, unpredictable world of foreign affairs.
So, how in the world did we get here? How did the Fed, the all-powerful Fed, suddenly get pushed to the side, especially now that inflation has kinda settled down, which makes their next moves feel a lot more predictable anyway?
I mean, just listen to this quote. Wow, calling the Fed yesterday's story, a year ago, that would have been totally unthinkable. It just goes to show you how incredibly fast Wall Street's focus has pivoted away from monetary policy and onto the global stage.
And part of what's going on is that the Fed's own house is a little messy right now. You've got Fed Chair Powell facing all this criticism, and you're hearing whispers, this chatter, that other officials are basically auditioning for his job. All that noise just distracts from their actual policy, making it less of a central driver for the market.
So if everyone's not watching the Fed, where are all eyes pointed? Well, it's these geopolitical hotspots. We're talking about huge things here. Simmering tensions in the Middle East with Iran, of course the ongoing conflict in Europe, and then you've got this whole cloud of risk, both short and long-term, brewing over in Asia. These are the things that can move billions of dollars in the blink of an eye.
But hang on, geopolitics is only one piece of the puzzle. There's another massive concern that's running parallel to all this, the high-stakes game of trade tariffs.
Okay, get out your calendar. You're going to want to circle this date, July 9th. Why? Because that's the next big deadline when a new wave of tariffs could just snap right back into place. The whole market is basically holding its breath for this one.
But here's the thing, and this is really key, that date isn't necessarily a hard stop. The administration has kind of shown its hand. If countries are willing to come to the table and actually negotiate, then these deadlines can get pushed back. And they have. And the perfect example of this is China. They're often seen as the toughest nut to crack in these negotiations, right? But even they got a 6-month extension after talks about things like rare earth exports. And you have to remember, that stuff is critical for everything from EVs to our defense systems. So the thinking is, hey, if a deal can be paused for them, it can probably be paused for anyone who's willing to play ball. So with all this pushing and pulling, a kind of reluctant clarity is starting to emerge. The market is beginning to see a pattern, a structure that it can actually start to price in.
Because let's be real, in the middle of all this chaos, any kind of predictability is worth its weight in gold. And that's what's happening. Investors are latching on to what looks like a pretty straightforward two-tiered system for global trade, giving them a baseline they can finally work with.
So what does this framework actually look like? Well, it's pretty simple, really. For most of our partners, think the UK, Europe, the market is betting on a baseline 10% tariff. But for China, the hardest partner, it's a whole different story. We're talking a much steeper 30%, plus some extra tariffs on top. This 10-30 split, that's the new playbook everyone's watching.
And that 10% number, it's really starting to feel like the new normal. It's becoming the standard. There's even a lot of talk, you're seeing headlines, that Europe is looking to get the exact same 10% deal the UK got. And if that happens, well, that pretty much cements this whole framework for the foreseeable future.
Okay, so we've got geopolitics on one side, this new trade framework on the other. But what does all this high-level talk and maneuvering actually mean for the real economy? For businesses on the ground?
I mean, this quote just says it all, doesn't it? It perfectly captures the sheer frustration out there. Imagine you're trying to run a business, trying to make long-term plans, and you're being told a deal is just 2 weeks away, and you hear that for 2 months straight. It creates this paralyzing uncertainty.
And that uncertainty, it feeds directly into this big push to reshore manufacturing, to bring those jobs back to the US. The goal is clear, everyone gets that. But the big hurdle is that just slapping on tariffs isn't causing this massive flood of jobs to come back. But, and this is a big but, there is a silver lining. There's hope. Because even with all the gridlock, some serious money is still being invested right here in the US.
And if you want an example of that hope, look no further. This is just, wow. There are plans for $1 trillion, with a T, AI robot facility in Arizona. I mean, think about that. That is a massive vote of confidence. It shows that despite all the drama and turmoil around the world, big investors still see the U.S. as the place to be.
So that's the landscape. You've got a market that's caught right in the middle of these geopolitical flare-ups and these super tense trade talks. The two things are completely tangled up now, right? They're intertwined. It creates this incredibly complex chain of dominoes just waiting to be tipped over. And that leaves us with the billion-dollar question, or maybe the trillion-dollar question: which one of these dominoes is going to fall first?